National Basketball Association. Welcome back to Sound and Siren. I'm Xavier.
I'm Dylan. Yes, another big off-season for one of the best leagues in the world, in my opinion. Trade after trade in the trade period and free agency. I know our teams, Save, have been on the rise. I'm very excited. But today we will be doing basically what we do every year. It'll be the second edition of the NBA Tier Maker, ranking their teams, seeing if they're going to make it all the way to the playoffs or even the finals. But Save, how have you been and what's your take on the off-season?
I've been pretty good. As you said, our two teams being the Heat and the Lakers have been two of the more active teams in all of the league. We know the Lakers have pretty much revamped their whole roster, and the Heat, your team, has added massive pieces in Kyle Lowry, re-signed Victor Oladipo. So both will come in as very different teams next year and hopefully make up for the first round exits last year.
Not only that, but a few dark horses. I have a couple of opinions on teams that I think will flourish, and when we get to them, I will mention them. So the first team that we have to rank save is the Philadelphia 76ers. A lot of conjecture about Ben Simmons on the off-season, and he still has stated he does not want to return and play with the likes of Joel Embiid. But apart from Benny Simmons, I'd say the depth is still there for their roster, and in my opinion, they're still a contender.
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the harder teams to rank because, as you said, Ben Simmons is such a good player, three-time All-Star, and we don't really know what's going to happen with him, whether he does come back, which is looking increasingly unlikely, but just his trade value as a whole, whether he leaves and they get a superstar back or they might not get much at all because, as I said, we don't really know his trade value, but I think if they did bring him back, it's going to be incredibly hard to bring him back now. But if they did bring him back, then I would put them in contenders as well. But
Yeah.
it's definitely going to be heavily reliant on what they get for him.
I'll propose you this trade scenario. If they do acquire John Wall from the Rockets, contenders?
I don't really like the fit of John Wall, to be honest. I prefer Ben Simmons on the 76ers, to be honest. So if they got John Wall, I'd probably move them down to playoff locks. But I think at the moment they're still contenders.
So for now, they're still contenders. Yeah, and they signed Andre Drummond as well for the
Mhm.
bench.
Yeah, that's a little bit of an odd signing because we know Andre Drummond's a very solid player who would obviously look to start, but he's not going to get any starting minutes playing behind one of the best centers in the league in Joel Embiid. But it's a good pickup for them nonetheless.
Now, to the Wizards, they have had a major shift in the offseason. They obviously traded Russell Westbrook and in return received Kyle Kuzma and Montrezl Harrell, which is an underrated signing in my opinion. Also Spencer Dinwiddie, and then they drafted Corey Kispert as well.
I would say playoff hopefuls. They obviously lost Russell Westbrook. I think they were an 8 seed last year. They lost Russell Westbrook, who was very good for them. But they still have Bradley Beal and they're still in the East, so they're definitely a great chance. And as you said, Trez, Kyle Kuzma, KCP, a couple of those, Spencer Dinwiddie, who's very good. They're all going to help keep that team in at least the hunt. So I think they're playoff hopefuls.
Now, do you believe in conspiracies? Because we know D'Angelo Russell, Lonzo Ball, they've all played very well when they've left the Lakers. Will Kyle Kuzma do the same?
I think he will personally. I think he's definitely going to be. We'll do this in another video, but I think he's going to be a chance for most improved player uh, for a few reasons. One, he's now playing on the Wizards instead of the Lakers. We know they don't have quite as much spotlight on the team compared to the Lakers, who have LeBron and all those big names and contending for a title, obviously. But he's also going to get more shots, not having to play behind all those big names. He's going to have more of the ball in his hands, going to take more shots. Obviously, that's going to result in more points. So I think he could definitely play much better.
To the Hawks now. Not a lot of movement, but not necessarily a lot of movement needed. They extended Trey Young. They drafted Jalen Johnson at pick 20 and Sharif Cooper, who was a standout in the Summer League. And then they just re signed a few other key components of that team where they went to the Eastern Conference Finals. So I'd like to say they're still contenders. Trey Young now is probably almost the main starter in an all-star team, in my opinion. He is of that caliber.
I would put them playoff locks, pushing contenders. As you said, they made the conference finals last year. I think that was probably overachieving for their roster, but it was really, really, really impressive from them nonetheless. As you said, they got Clint Capella. It was pretty much a new team. They got Clint Capella in, who only played a couple of games the year before, and they had big pieces, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Lou Williams, and Rondo for the whole year combined. as well as a few other pieces, but just massive for them to in that push. But they're also a really, really young team. All those players I just named, DeAndre Hunter, Kevin Huerter, they still have a lot of upside, so they could definitely be better.
Yeah, and they still made the Eastern Conference Finals, even with the youth. To the Cavs, they drafted Evan Mobley, who's a Rookie of the Year contender. I'd say still bottom of the barrel, but I do like the pieces they have. They also have probably the tallest lineup in the league, Taco Fall. They traded Larry Nance, but then they also have Jaron Allen and received Lauri Markkanen from the Bulls.
Yeah, I think, as you said, they do have a really tall lineup, and the way that their roster matches up for those center and power forward minutes is going to be really interesting to see. I think Lowry signing there was a really odd signing, to be honest, because obviously he's going to come behind Jared Allen, who they gave, I think, a max or close to it. So, but yeah, they've got lots of players: Colin Sexton and Darius Garland, the classic Sexland. It's going to be hopefully a really good backcourt for them as well this year.
And Ricky Rubio as well. How do they fit all the guards into that playing style?
Well, I think they're going to have to play guards and bigs on the wing spots in the 3 and some in the 2, because we know they've got too many guards and they've got too many bigs. So that must mean that they don't have many 3s. So I guess we're going to have to see them play at the 3.
To Detroit, they lost Mason Plumlee, who played a big part in some of their wins last year. He moved to the Hornets. And Cade Cunningham, he is the standout player for Detroit now. I also like the signing of Kelly Olynyk.
I think they're probably still bottom of the barrel just because of how young they are. But as you said, Cade Cunningham, we'll see how good he is this year. If he can be really, really good, produce like a Luka rookie season, then maybe they can get into that playoff hopeful bracket. But I don't really see it. Killian Hayes is, I think, a number 4 pick from last year who got injured this year. And Pistons fans will definitely be looking to see him back in their lineup.
For sure. On to the Pacers. Now, I'm a little indecisive on where to put the Pacers because they haven't necessarily achieved a lot in the past few years. But Miles Turner was injured. TJ Warren, we haven't seen him since his bubble standout performances. So I'm thinking playoff hopefuls.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same. I think they probably will make the playoffs. I'll see at the end of this, but they don't really have that star power that a lot of the other teams have. Like you look at the 2 above them, obviously Joel Embiid and Trae Young would be easily the best player on the Pacers, but they have a lot of really solid players. As you said, TJ Warren, they still have Miles Turner, Domantas Sabonis, who's a back-to-back All-Star now. Malcolm Brogdon's really solid. Karis LeVert, who missed time last year. He had a spot or something, I think, had to be removed. So they have a lot of really, really solid players, and if they can all come together, they can definitely still make the playoffs.
And TJ McConnell, who's always that player you just love. He's fierce, he's hard at the ball and racks up the steals. And they signed Torrey Craig, but not a lot of movement there for the Pacers. Now, to the Bucks, I don't think we need to say a lot. They won the championship and they're still favourites. Giannis is absolutely dominant.
I think it depends on how many we have in favourites. If we went, I won't give anything away, but I think they're my 3rd team at the moment. So I'd have them in the contenders or favourites. As you said, they won the championship last year. They were really, really impressive. Giannis's finals run was incredible, one of the best we've ever seen. Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton are great complementary stars for the Bucks as well. So they're going to be a really, really good team again.
But how big of a part do the shooters play? They lost PJ Tucker. They also lost Bryn Forbes, who had big performances in the playoffs.
Yeah, they were both really, really big for them this year. But I think they do have other people that can come in. Pat Connaughton missed time and didn't play in the playoffs last year, so he'll be really good for them coming back in. They still have DiVincenzo. They've got Brook Lopez, who can shoot from the 5, and obviously Chris Middleton is one of the best shooters in the league. So I think they can still make up for it in other spots.
To the Raptors, obviously lost their point guard, their franchise point guard, Kyle Lowry, and they also drafted Scotty Barnes at pick 4. Now, they have the ability to exceed expectations because they also received Goran Dragic and Precious Achiuwa from the Heat, who is a young prospect and has a lot of upside. I'd still say playoff hopefuls taking that into account.
Yeah, I think playoff hopefuls as well. I think they're going to be one of the hardest teams to judge again. And one thing that I think was underrated last year was they had no home games. They were the only team in the league that didn't play a single home game.
Yeah.
Every one of their home games was played in Tampa Bay. So I think in Tampa Bay. So they didn't get to go to Canada. They were literally living in another country for the whole year. So
Yeah.
I think that's going to be an underrated factor. But yeah, as you said, Pascal Siakam, he'll be looking for a bounce back season. But they have some really good players, and they could still make the playoffs as well. So playoff hopefuls.
To the Mavericks, they signed Moses Brown, Reggie Bullock, but lost Josh Richardson to the Celtics.
I would say playoff locks. I had them as playoff contenders last year instead of locks, but I was a little bit disappointed with them. I thought Josh Richardson would be really good for them. Thought he would play defense and score the ball fairly well, but he was really disappointing, as was Porzingis, especially in the playoffs. They definitely didn't get from him what they wanted. So we've heard trade rumors about him, but I still think he's really, really solid and can be really good for the Mavericks.
Yeah, a bit of a morale boost for the Mavericks. He said he's content with staying after the coaches shifted his role to more of an inside player with a perimeter threat as well, instead of just being the sole focus of the 3-point line. So that's good for the Mavericks. To the Nuggets, probably.
Just quickly, they have a change in coach as well. They went from Rick Carlisle to Jason Kidd, so that'll be interesting to see how that plays out too.
Yep. To the Nuggets, still without Jamal Murray for the first part of the season. They also lost JaVale McGee to Phoenix.
I would say playoff locks. We know Jokic is one of the best players in the league, coming off an MVP last year. Michael Porter Jr., who's unvaxxed, so I'm not sure how many games he'll play this year. Will still be really good for them. We know he signed a massive bag last week, I think. One of the biggest deals for anyone ever, in particular a rookie. So he's been really, really good. And as you said, Jamal Murray, he'll be back for the second half of the year to help them push to one of the top 4 seeds.
Now the Grizzlies, I'd say probably still around that 8 seed, that play-in mark. Ja Morant obviously a superstar in the making, or already is somewhat of a superstar. So Jaren Jackson back as well.
Yeah, I would say playoff hopefuls, but I think they're the best team out of those ones probably. Ja Morant, as you said, he's going to be in his 3rd year, I think, so he'll be pushing to make all-star teams and be one of the best guards in the league. And Jaren Jackson Jr., we know how talented he is, but he missed most of last year, so him coming back, having a good off-season to really get fit is going to be really good for them.
Jonas Valanciunas is gone, however. They do have Steven Adams. I'd still say Valanciunas is probably a little better than Steven Adams.
Yeah, I would agree, purely because of his ability to stretch the court. We know he can shoot the 3 a little bit, whereas Steven Adams doesn't do that at all. Although we have seen a few off-season videos of him shooting 3s, but I don't know how much we can react to those.
Yeah, for sure. To the Timberwolves, hard to judge. Another team, a lot of talent, a lot of potential. Obviously, D'Angelo Russell and Kat haven't played a lot of games together. Anthony Edwards in the mix. I suggest playoff hopefuls.
Yeah, I would say playoff hopefuls as well. I could definitely see them making the playoffs. We had, as you said, D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns missed a lot of last year, but both of them are really, really, really good players that have been all-stars in the last 3 years. So that's a really good 1-2 punch. And Anthony Edwards was the number 1 pick last year, who could take a massive jump this year. So he'll be really good for them as well. And I think they're one of the teams that has a genuine chance of trading for Ben Simmons as well. And if they get Ben Simmons in and they keep those other 3, I think they'll make the playoffs.
Who would they trade for Ben Simmons, though, Zave?
I've actually made this one on my trade simulator before. I've got they're just bringing up the cash to make it fit, and then they're trading picks elsewhere to trade a very good player to the 76ers to help them contain.
Okay. To the Spurs, probably bottom of the barrel, acquired Bryn Forbes. They still have the likes of DeJounte Murray and Lonnie Walker, but I don't think it's enough to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I think probably bottom of the barrel. It feels really weird putting the Spurs at the bottom of the barrel, who have been such a force for such a long time. Any Greg Popovich team, you're probably pushing them up into towards the playoffs, but their talent really isn't that good. DeJounte Murray is going to be their best player, I assume, and he's not quite as good as any of the best players above them, and they don't really have the depth of the other teams as well. So bottom of the barrel.
And let's acknowledge Jock Landale. He proved his worth. He signed a contract with the Spurs, so hopefully he gets some game time. And also Josh Primo, or Josh Primo, I'm not 100% sure on how to pronounce it, but he's the young draft pick for them, so just time to develop. To the Jazz,
They're definitely playoff locks, if not contenders. They have Mike Conley. We know how good he is. He's changed his number in the offseason. Made his first All-Star appearance last year, surprisingly. Donovan Mitchell, absolute superstar. Rudy Gobert, one of the best defensive players in the league. And they're another really, really deep team as well. So I could see them making a run for a championship, but I'd probably put them playoff locks.
and they also signed/traded. They received Eric Pascal. They signed Rudy Gay and they signed Hassan Whiteside.
Yeah, definitely some good pickups. I'm not sure how much Hassan Whiteside will play. Obviously, he's a talented player, but I don't think him and Rudy Gobert can be on the court at the same time. So I'm sure it'll just be a little bit of a backup role for him.
And the final team for the part one of the ranking all the teams on the tier maker, the LA Clippers. Without Kawhi for the majority of this season, you'd think, but taking that into account, I'd say they're still probably far up the ranks.
This is an interesting one, in my opinion. I'd probably put them contenders, but it's definitely reliant on how fit and healthy Kawhi Leonard is. If he's at his best, they're going to be contenders. But I've heard some reports that he's going to miss the whole year. I've heard other reports that he won't miss that long at all. So if he gets back early in the season, they can definitely get up there. They had one good off-season signing.
Eric Bledsoe.
Yeah, Eric Bledsoe. He's going to be a great pickup for them. He's a similar player to Patrick Beverley, but I'd say better. So with him, Kawhi, Paul George, that's going to be the best defensive trio in the league. They'll get Serge Ibaka back, who missed most of last year, all of the playoffs. Yeah. Nick Batum was much improved. Marcus Morris is going to be much better as well. So I think they're still contenders.
Also, Justice Winslow as well.
Point Justice.
Yeah. So that concludes part one of the tier maker. Not a lot of star power compared to the teams that we've seen here. Obviously, we have teams such as the Lakers coming up and a few others such as the Nets. But that's part one finished. Make sure to check out all our socials and links in the description. Order your Footy Beanies now. Go follow at sts.podcast. That's where we update you with all the videos. So we will see you in a little bit. Moving on to part two.